Hey guys, Lethal here today with another video. Today we're going to be doing a Subtlety Rogue talent as well as a rotation guide. So we're just going to jump right into it. For your 15 row, your choices are between Master of Subtlety and Gloomblade. So now me personally, I generally stick with Master of Subtlety and I go for Gloomblade when I'm versing a Paladin because Gloomblade can attack them through Bop. Also, Master of Subtlety is better for outburst and Gloomblade is better for constant damage. Gloomblade will help your overall DPS. So that's just, I'm giving you guys the information, you make the decision. For the 30 row, you're going to take Subterfuge, just the best talent choice in that. For the 45, Deeper Stratagem is the overall better choice in terms of DPS. However, I choose Vigor because it increases my maximum energy by 50, so it allows me to pool more energy and burst out a little bit more damage in that one output. And it also increases my energy regeneration by 10%. That's why I choose Vigor, but Deeper Stratagem is the better DPS choice. Alright, for your level 60 row, you could technically take any of these in this row, but Soothing Darkness is the superior choice. You heal 3% of your maximum life every second while Stealth or Shadow Dance is active. Just to put that into perspective as to how good that is, if you guys remember back in MOP, Warriors had a talent called Second Wind, and it was you heal 3% of your maximum life every second when you go below 35% health. And if you guys remember that, you remember how much of a pain in the it was to kill Warriors. It was hard, okay? That talent was OP and it got nerfed really quick. It's a good talent, you know. So just think of going in, vanishing, getting some heals, popping Crimson Vial, coming out of your vanish and popping Shadow Dance. You're gonna get a lot of healing right away. For your 75 row, you're going to want to go with Prey of the Weak. It's just better for overall damage. The other two choices are just CC. If you're going to take one of these two, I would take the Strike from the Shadows because it makes your Shadow Strike stun. Okay? Well, for players, it dazes them. It only stuns NPCs. So, in terms of PvP, that doesn't really help you. For your level 90 row, you're going to want to take Dark Shadow. Increases your damage by 30% when you use Shadow Dance. There's nothing better than a 30% damage buff. Look at Wings on a pal, that's a 35 damage buff. And everybody knows when they see Wings to CC him. So you should know that 30% is a lot. So now if you got your 30% buff from Shadow Dance, then you get your other 10% from Shadow Dance. Then you get your 15% from Nightblade. And if you pop your Symbols of Death, that's another 15%. That's where your burst is going to come in, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Your level 100 row, you're going to want to take Mark for Death. Death for above is nerfed. You don't want that. Master of Shadows, a little bit of energy. Mark for Death just allows you to put out that much more damage. And instant 5 combo points is a lot more utility than you think. So now for your honor talents, for the first row, you're going to want to take Trinket. Unless you're an orc, then you might want to take a Relentless. Just because you're an orc doesn't mean you definitely take a Relentless, but you just might want to because it does reduce crowd control by a lot. For the second row, you're going to generally take Reinforced Armor. Unless you're going against 2 or more melee, then you'll take Sparring. For the third row, you're going to want to go with Maneuverability, just to be able to suppress all movement and parrying effects for 4 seconds. It's a long time, and it's enough time to get on your target, especially with the speed increase, instead of wasting a Shadow Step. For this row, you're going to want to take Smoke Bomb. It's just the best choice out of these. Can't wait to unlock that. It's very good for singling out somebody to kill them, to finish a kill, or to single out, say, a healer for letting him be able to heal out. Because you can't damage or heal in or out of the cloud. If you're in the cloud, you can damage people in the cloud. If you're out of the cloud, you can't do anything in it. Alright, so for your one, two, three, four, fifth row, you're going to want to take Cold Blood. Dagger in the Dark isn't bad. It does, if you wait 10 seconds and stalk your target, it will give you 100% damage buff on Shadow Strike. But 10% of your target's total health is probably more than 100% damage on Shadow Strike. Maybe a little, but you also don't have to sit there and stalk your target. You also can just Shadow Dance and use it. For Dagger in the Dark, you need to be in stealth. So Cold Blood, you can use it in a lot more situations. You don't have to wait. It's a lot more on-demand damage. For your last row, you're going to want to take Thieves Bargain. Increases all your damage by 10%. And your Vanish cooldown is reduced by 45 seconds, which puts it on a 45-second cooldown. And your maximum health is reduced by 15%. So you do have a lot less health, but you're able to vanish more. And because of Soothing Darkness, you can vanish more, so you can heal more. So it's like it's balanced out, okay? But there are some situations where you might want to take Phantom Assassin if you don't think you're gonna need to vanish a lot. That's really it. But those are the talents, and let's get into the rotation. And now for the rotation. So there's multiple instances of your rotation. You're gonna have one when you're in stealth and you start your opener. Okay, so rotation 1, opener. A second rotation would be a burst rotation, and your third rotation would be your sustained DPS rotation. Okay, so first we'll go over the opener. Okay, so you're in stealth. We're gonna assume that you're not right on top of your target. Alright, so you're gonna Shadow Strike to close the gap, and then you're gonna cheap shot him. If you only have 4 combo points, you're gonna backstab for the 5th. Sometimes, most of the time, you'll have 5 combo points from the auto attacks, combo point generator. Okay, and then with your 5th combo point, you're gonna apply Nightblade to the target because that gives you a 15% damage increase to that target. Okay, so that's your opener. So I'll show you right now. Sometimes, depending on the enemy, instead of Shadow Strike cheap shot, I'll just Shadow Strike Shadow Strike. It all depends because Nightblade does apply a slow. So if I don't need them stunned, I'll go for the damage and I'll Shadow Strike Nightblade. But sometimes I want them stunned and I'll Shadow Strike cheap shot Nightblade. But if I'm right on top of them, sometimes I'll cheap shot Shadow Strike Nightblade. It all depends on the situation. So it looks something like this: Shadow Strike, cheap shot, and because it's a dummy, I didn't get the cheap shot combo points, and then a Nightblade. Now I have no combo points, okay? And I have Nightblade on the target. So now you need to decide: am I gonna burst or am I just gonna keep sustained DPS? It all depends. Like, if I'm in arena and they have a holy pally, I'm gonna save my burst. I might use Shadow Dance for like a little mini burst. Because when you use Shadow Dance, you're gonna have a burst in your damage. Because if you took the talent, like I said, Dark Shadow, you're immediately gonna have a 30% damage increase off the top, plus the 10% from Shadow Dance, and then you should have Nightblade on them, so that's 15% from Nightblade, and then if you use Symbols of Death, that's another 15%. So what you're gonna do is for the burst, okay, so now you've done that, you're gonna use Gorma's Bite, and then once you have 3, you're gonna eviscerate Shadow Blades, okay, and now you're gonna pop Shadow Dance, Shadow Strike, eviscerate. Okay, and you're going to be able to get 4 Shadow Strikes out of a Shadow Dance if you're not, making a video. And then when you run out of Shadow Dance and Shadow Strikes, you're going to be spamming Backstab for Eviscerates. And you're going to keep Nightblade up and use Symbol of Death as soon as you can without overflowing your energy. If you have 140 energy, don't use it yet. Make sure you spam out some of your abilities. Get your energy a little bit lower so you get the full use out of that ability. You don't want to just use it at full energy because you're only getting half of the benefit. It is on a short cooldown, and you do want to usually line it up with Shadow Dance for your Shadow Blaze for your full burst. Okay, that's your full burst. You're going to want to use Mark for Death as needed. So normally what I do is I'll be in stealth, I'll do my 2 Shadow Strikes and my Nightblade, and then I'll usually immediately Mark for Death Eviscerate. or a mark for death kidney shot. It all depends on the situation. Like if it's a frost mage, I'm gonna mark for death kidney shot because they can move around a lot. And most frost mages nowadays take shimmer, so they can't blink out of the stun, which in my opinion is, yes, you do get the extra blink, and you do get to blink while casting, but you're giving up that extra trinket. Like that's like a 15-second trinket almost. It's crazy to give that up. I mean, it does have its utility, but I just believe it's not worth it. Anyways, getting off topic. So now, because you have the honor talent, Thieves Bargain, if you took that, you're gonna have low health because 50% of your health is gone. But your vanish is on a slow cooldown. Okay, so now you know your opener, you know your burst, and you know your just sustained DPS is basically spamming backstab into eviscerate and keeping Nightblade up. Stunning is necessary, healing is necessary, mark for death when it comes up. Okay? Or if you know you're gonna burst soon, save your mark for death for that extra burst. Okay? You can symbols of death in your sustained DPS if you're becoming energy starved. Don't be afraid to just save it for your burst because it's a short cooldown. If you're sustaining DPS, just use it. And you can burst when it's up. Because it has a 10-second uptime and a 30-second cooldown, so it's really only has a 20-second cooldown. So anyways, now on the defensive situation, now let's say I'm gonna die, like I have 20% health, and we're assuming that I do not have cheat death, okay? So now, immediately what I'm gonna do is, it depends now. If I have magical dots, I'm gonna cloak. If I don't have magical dots, I'm just gonna vanish. So we're just gonna assume I cloak vanish and immediately pop Crimson Vial. Okay, so now Crimson Vial heals 30% health over 6 seconds. Now if you tailor that with 3% health every second, we'll just use a 6-second thing. That's 18% plus 30%. That's 48% of your health in 6 seconds. And every second thereafter is another 3% health. You could be at full health in just a little over 10 seconds. But you don't even need to get to full health. You could just stay in stealth for like 6 to 7 seconds. And if you were at 20%, you're now going to be at around 70%. So you're almost at full health. If you have a healer, he'll top you off with no trouble at all. If you have melee on you, you don't really need to vanish if you're not about to die. Like if you could still dish out some damage and take a little bit of damage, you can evasion if it's a melee on you and just keep dishing out damage to him while he can't do much to you. Now if you're going against the caster, you could just cloak if you don't want to use your vanish. But just know that if you use your cloak without vanish, if you need to vanish again later, you won't have cloak, and cloak's a 1.5 CD. So now also what you can do is, like I said, you can banish pop Crimson Vial for 48% health, and then after those 6 seconds, you can Shadow Strike to your target. You'll be in stealth, so you'll be able to Shadow Strike twice because of Subterfuge. And then you pop Shadow Dance, and while Shadow Dance is available, you'll be gaining 3% health every second. So that's 5 seconds it's up. So that's 15% health, okay? So now you've got 48% health plus 15 is 63% health, while you're being able to keep up pressure. So rogues have a lot of, I'll stick to Subtlety rogues specifically, have a lot of defensive capability as well as being able to put out pressure while being defensive, okay? And now also, if you're on one person and they're about to die, and there's a healer, smoke bomb. So you cut off that healer's ability. Okay, so now what you should do in the ideal scenario is blind him, and then once blind the healer, keep doing damage, and then right when the blind ends, smoke bomb. And then now the healer can't heal him for, I think a blind is like 7 seconds. And then smoke bomb is 5 seconds. So we'll just say that's a good 10, 11, maybe even 12 seconds that a healer can't do anything. And even if he trinkets the blind, he can't trinket a smoke bomb. The only thing he can do is run in the smoke bomb, which depending on location and stuff, you know. But by the time he runs into the smoke bomb, you should have killed the enemy if you used it strategically enough. But yeah, that's your basic subtlety rogue guide. In the future, I'll come out with an advanced guide with some little tips and tricks, some specific things that for players that have this stuff down. But this is your up-to-date subtlety rogue guide. Okay, some things to just note are in your artifact weapon. Shadow techniques always grant you 8 energy, and also keep in mind that right here, after using after you use Nightblade or Eviscerate, the next one is gonna do 25% increased damage, or is it 20%? Let me see. The next one does 20% increased damage. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You have 30 seconds to use that buff. And also, after you use a Shadow Strike or Cheap Shot, a Carrier's Soul appears 2 seconds later and soul rips your target, dealing 66k damage. That's a good thing to keep in your mind, to know that that's going to happen. And after using Shadow Strike or Cheap Shot, or using Shuriken Storm, only while Shadow Dance is active, you explode, dealing 110k damage to all nearby enemies, but it can only occur once every 5 seconds, so you can only really get that effect once per Shadow Dance. So that's but that's still great extra damage. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Shadow Step when necessary. Sprint, remember, it'll break your roots. And if you're running at them and there's literally no way to damage them, it doesn't hurt to throw a couple of shuriken tosses. They don't do a lot of damage, but it's better to do some damage than no damage. Stun when you need to CC. And just remember, if you, let's just say, just one last tip. Let's say I'm in combat and I blind the healer. When you blind somebody, sometimes you blind them and it's long enough to where they leave combat. Now, if they leave combat while you're fighting, let's say you're going against a pally and a warrior. Let's say I'm fighting the warrior, I blind the pally, and now the pally's just about to leave the blind, and he leaves combat. Use Shadow Dance, and you could sap him. Now keep going on, sap him again, keep going on him, sap him again. And he's going to be CC'd for a while. And then after the third sap's only going to last like 1 second. You can even come over here and kidney shot him and keep him CC'd even longer. But that's up to you, and you need to read the situation and make your decisions. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. And subscribe for more content just like this. I make gameplays every day, sometimes twice a day. It all depends on what's going on in my life. And you guys have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.